What's up, you all? Today is another fun-filled show where we talk about what's behind the mask. Today's title is Behind the Mask, a Peek into Blackness. There are a lot of things going on in the world, and at the foundation of all of it is the Black experience in America. How we view this world comes through the lens of what Black people have experienced in America. You can take any issue and you can backtrack it, and it goes back to the relationship that Black people have had with this country. And so when I do these videos, I really want to show the truth, and for a reason. And it's because what has happened is a narrative has been created. And that narrative has set up the dynamics for the entire planet. And that is a oppressed, oppressor narrative. That narrative spirals into everything. So when we talk about Agenda 2030 and the sustainable goals, at the crux of it is people being oppressed. We have to solve the problem. At the crux of Agenda 2030, it is them saying the people of the world are oppressed and we must come and save them. If we look at politics, politics has become pretty much a black and white issue. If you're for the country, you're white. If you're against it, you're Black. But I want to talk today about what's behind the mask. And what's behind the mask of Blackness is Satan. Satan is hiding behind that mask. That doesn't mean that all Black people are Satan. Doesn't mean that. What it means is Satan is using Blackness to run cover as he ushers in the Antichrist. Many folks argue about whether there's an Antichrist, whether it's an actual person, whether it's the Roman Catholic Church, whatever. But I'm going to say be prepared for both. Because the Antichrist, if it is a person, he will have a system behind it. And if it is a system, it will have a person leading it. So either way, you'll get the same results. Much like the argument of fascism versus communism. It's the same thing. One is where the state is ruling. The other is where a person is ruling. State has total power or an individual has total power. Either way, the same results occur. You get out of line, firing squad, or starvation. But let's continue. Let me go to this video real quick. Let me go to this video real quick. Let me. Just give me 1 second. Is this it?
The man accused of killing 6 people.
Here we go. Yep. This is it.
Jordan thinks the man accused of killing 6 people in a 72-hour period has a lengthy criminal history.
Damen McDaniel has previously faced 3 attempted murder charges. WVTM 13's Zoe Blair joining us in the studio now. Zoe, McDaniel was on probation for those other charges when those crimes occurred.
I spent all day going through his history. McDaniel was halfway through a 3-year probation when those crimes were committed last month. I sat down with Jefferson County Bessemer Cutoff District Attorney Lenise Washington this afternoon to ask her about those previous cases that happened in Bessemer.
McDaniel started out with cases here in the Bessemer Cutoff some years ago. He was placed on probation. He had a split sentence.
Damen McDaniel is currently facing 25 charges for a 72-hour period. He's accused of killing 6 people and injuring 20 more, but his criminal history begins years before that, when he was only 17 years old.
I'm gonna start this over. Let me say what's up to everybody on here. Mr. Demare, what's up? Just a Girl, what's up? Pamela, what's up? How you doing? Lynn Bell, what's up? Mika, what's up? Tierra, what's up? Seek the Truth. Way 65, what's up? Kenya, what's up? Leatherface, what's up? Cruise Missile, what's up? But let's continue. I'm gonna start this over because I want this to sink in on what you're hearing right now with this case.
Jordan thinks the man accused of killing 6 people in a 72-hour period has a lengthy criminal history.
Damen McDaniel has previously faced 3 attempted murder charges. WVTM 13's Zoe Blair joining us in the studio now. Zoe, McDaniel was on probation for those other charges when those crimes occurred.
I spent all day going through his history. McDaniel was halfway through a 3-year probation when those crimes were committed last month. I sat down with Jefferson County Bessemer Cutoff District Attorney Lenise Washington this afternoon to ask her about those previous cases that happened in Bessemer.
McDaniel started out with cases here in the Bessemer Cutoff some years ago. He was placed on probation. He had a split sentence.
Damen McDaniel is currently facing 25 charges for a 72-hour period. He's accused of killing 6 people and injuring 20 more, but his criminal history begins years before that, when he was only 17 years old. In 2019, McDaniel was arrested on counts of attempted murder in Bessemer.
Damen McDaniels pled guilty on 2 charges of attempt murder within the Bessemer Cutoff jurisdiction in 2023.
He was sentenced to serve 15 years in that case, but was released after 2 of them. McDaniels was given 3 years probation.
A part of your conditions of probation, you're not supposed to be around injurious and vicious people.
He pled guilty to attempted murder, multiple cases of attempted murder, and he got probation. Now, why do you think they would give somebody like this young man probation? What are the factors they're considering and giving him probation with such a lengthy criminal history? What are they deciding to where they're saying that this guy needs to not be locked up? He needs to remain out in society. What is their reasoning system? What are the factors behind that? I'll tell you. It's because he's Black. And if the judicial system is corrupt, then how could you ever hold Black folks accountable? This is the conundrum that we're in this country. This is why you see so much criminal behavior celebrated. It's because they're telling you that the system is corrupt, and they're basing the corrupt system on Black people. But it is a fact that Black people commit the most crimes. So how is it that Black folks commit the most crimes, but you don't expect them to get the consequence of the judicial system? It doesn't make any sense. This young man pled guilty to attempted murder and got probation. But they want to convince you that white people do this. It's not true. I could spend a year going through case after case of Black people doing the most horrific crimes and not getting locked up, making bond. It's crazy. But when they get on TV, they keep saying that the system is rigged against Black people. And I'm like, how? If Jordan Neely was Daniel Penny, he would be a hero. If we just switch the roles of the people, let it be Daniel Penny come on a train, threatening passengers and saying he's ready to go, and he doesn't care, and issuing threats of who he's going to take out. And Jordan Neely put him in a chokehold restraint, and he passed away from other causes, or even the choke. He'd be a hero. So again, the dynamics of accountability boil down to white people not being able to hold anybody accountable based on their history. But even though the entire world has a bad history, because the entire world has sinned, only one group's past prevents them from doing anything in the present. Africans have a bad history. The Chinese have a bad history. India every nation has a bad history. You can pick out any bad things about anybody's history, but for some reason, only one group of people are condemned from theirs forever. They don't even mention anybody else's bad histories. They make you believe the Native Americans were dancing with wolves and buffaloes. So again, the foundation of what we are seeing spirals from the relationship between Black people and America. When the Peter pandemic came, everybody kept saying that Black people had to move to the front of the line to get the shot. Based on what? Marginalized people should be offered the shots first. Based on what? The disenfranchised should get the shots first. Based on what? Based on the perception that there is an oppressed and oppressor system in America. That if anybody is not having their best life lived, it is because they are oppressed. And if anybody is living their best life, it's because they're oppressing.
Not be around in disreputable places or around people with bad character.
Washington says they filed a petition to revoke that probation last week.
We filed a petition to revoke his probation based upon things that were seen on social media. He was in violation of at least 2 of those conditions.
After McDaniel's recent arrest, Washington says they discovered even more ways he was violating his probation.
When they executed the warrant for his arrest, there were guns found in his possession as well as marijuana.
So why was McDaniel released? I found out after pleading guilty. A judge suspended 13 years of that 15-year sentence. He was also given credit for time served, which allowed him to be put out on probation and released. McDaniel is behind bars tonight with no chance of bailing out ahead of his trial. He's due back in court next month for that probation violation. We'll stay on top of this story and bring you new facts as we get them.
Remember, I told you all that the goal is to have the criminals terrorize law-abiding citizens, and then those law-abiding citizens go to the local government, city government, or government, and they ask for protection and help. And then they come in and they issue martial law. Because the only way to stop the crime is to lock everybody down. That's the goal. The only way to keep everybody safe is to lock everybody up. It's just how it works. So that's the goal. And now he's locked up without a bond because 6 people are dead and 20 are injured in 72 hours. I want you to think about this. After he got released, after he wasn't held accountable, you saw what happens. If a person had character, they wouldn't be in the courtroom in the first place. So once you give a person with no character that kind of leeway and leverage, 6 people are going to be dead and 20 injured. And if he'd have been left out longer, more would have died. It just is what it is. But they want you to overlook Damen McDaniel, or should I call him Damen McDaniel? They want you to overlook him because the system is corrupt. And if the system is corrupt and it's rigged against Black people, then we can't really fairly assess Damen McDaniels, because he must have had a rough upbringing. So if his family was poor when he grew up, it's white people's fault. If he got poor grades in school, it's white people's fault. If you notice, every step of the way for a Black person's life, there's a toll booth to put in that token where you get to blame. Actually, it's a reverse toll booth. They give you a token because you get to blame white folks and move forward. So I can find another video. Okay, I got another video here. So this one goes in a little more depth, a little more detail. This one goes in a little more depth. But first, I want to read this scripture. Galatians 5:19 through 21. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like, of which I tell you before, as I have also told you in the past, that they which do such things should not inherit the kingdom of God. The last, I'll read it again. Galatians 5:19 through 21. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such alike, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God.
The man charged in the 5 Points South mass shooting and 2 other deadly shootings in Birmingham now faces even more charges, including the mass shooting in July and another homicide in August. Here's a look at the timeline of these crimes. According to Birmingham police, 22-year-old Damen McDaniel of Bessemer is responsible for over 30% of the city's homicides from July to September. ABC 3340's Valerie Bell is working for you to learn more about these cases. Valerie, it's taken hours of investigating for police to piece all of these together.
It has, Megan, but the work doesn't stop there. Birmingham police say it's possible McDaniel could be connected to other unsolved homicides in Birmingham that hasn't been ruled out. Between July and September, Damen McDaniel is charged in 5 separate shootings. Altogether, he's accused of killing 11 people and injuring 29 others.
I feel like people like that need to be put away.
The deadly streak of crimes he's accused of started July 13th. It was at a venue, ABC 3340.
Let me stop right here and go back. I'm just accused of killing 11 people and injuring 29 others. In any other scenario, this guy would get national attention. If a white man was doing this, a 22-year-old white man accused of killing 11 people, injuring 29, it would be national news. So my question is, Why is this story not national news? Why is this story not national news? Somebody in the comments, Tish said, Bessemer is one of the scariest places I've ever been to, and I'm from Baltimore. And Baltimore is rough. If anybody been to Baltimore, Baltimore is rough. So she's saying she's from Baltimore, and Bessemer made her feel afraid. But I want you to think about, Bessemer is in Alabama, but I want you to think about that this story has received no national coverage. What's the difference between this guy and Ted Bundy, or this guy and Jeffrey Dahmer, or this guy and the Zodiac Killer? Like, what's the difference between this guy and all the rest of the white serial killers? Nothing. So why is the media intentionally not letting the world see what this young man did in a very short amount of time, even to the point where he was allowed to be released on multiple attempted murder convictions? And we all know that attempted murder in his case is going to mean he shot at somebody and didn't kill him. He tried to kill him, but he didn't. We're going to let you go. They talk about the judicial system and how bad it is towards Black people, but clearly everybody is in cahoots with the world not knowing the carnage that Black people can display. Accused of killing 11 people and injuring 29. If this person was white, this story would be, there would be movies, books, television series, it'd be sensationalized, it'd be everywhere. But when the person is Black, shh, don't say anything. And you trying to convince me that America's racist?
And injuring 29 others.
I feel like people like that need to be put away.
The deadly streak of crimes he's accused of started July 13th. It was at a venue ABC 3340 later discovered was unlicensed.
It's all right to make $1, but why should you make $1? You killing the neighborhood. This is my neighborhood.
The aftermath, blood on the streets, and anger and sadness in the community.
It's a shame. We got women dead now.
4 people were killed, 10 others were injured at that birthday party event.
Angie, I love you. Monique, my heart goes out to you. This sad.
According to police, McDaniel didn't act alone in this deadly mass shooting. 27-year-old Hatarius Woods was also indicted in this case.
Birmingham is most definitely a safer place with these individuals behind bars.
McDaniel was also indicted for capital murder again and burglary for an incident that happened a month later. Woods is also charged in that case. It involved a stolen vehicle, a man killed in an apartment, officers firing shots at the suspect, and a chase.
Very chaotic scene.
McDaniel is also accused of killing a 35-year-old woman. Police didn't believe she was the intended target when she was shot inside 604 bar on September 19th.
We are very deeply saddened by what happened.
A few days later, 100 shots rang out on a Saturday night in 5 Points South, a popular nightlife spot.
So probably about 5 or 6 that went out on a stretcher that I saw. I'm sure it was probably more.
4 people were killed. 17 others were injured.
I had to get out of there, so I was hopping on one leg.
Less than 24 hours later, dozens of rounds went off in Eastlake, killing a man and injuring 2 others. McDaniel has already had his first court appearance for that. 4 others were also charged in connection to that incident. As for the motive behind all these deadly shootings McDaniel is accused of, police aren't laying that out on the table yet.
We most certainly are investigating some of these homicides as actual pay for hire murders.
Court records show McDaniel pleaded guilty to 2 cases of attempted murder in 2023, receiving a sentence of 15 years split, 2 years to serve, with 3 years on probation. We've reached out to the DA's office asking about McDaniel's release and what, if anything, will be done in the future to keep violent offenders behind bars.
As far as them walking the streets and all of the evidence appears that they did it, then no good.
McDaniel remains in the Jefferson County Jail with no bond.
I feel safer for the community and especially the youth.
Police have also pointed out that tips from people in the community have helped. As they continue to investigate, they ask anyone with any additional information about these cases to contact them. Live in Birmingham, Valerie Bell, ABC 3340 News.
So there you have it. Damen McDaniel, aka Demon Mac, serial killer, released onto the street by the judge, woke judge, obviously. And again, the reason why the judge released him was because the black man has it rough in America. And this is where we are. And this is what's behind the mask. What's behind the mask is what black people are capable of and what black people have done. The media is framing it as if black people are this moral high ground for the world, and it's just not. It's never been true. Not that it's not true. It has never been true. And someone told me, a young lady told me that the reason why black folks are like this is because they are the closest to original sin, origin sin, meaning that the first people to bring sin into the world were black people. And that means they have the closest relationship to Satan because they're the ones that kicked this whole thing off. The fall of man came by the way of a black man being disobedient. And that was triggered by him following his black woman that was disobedient. And that was triggered by the black woman listening to the serpent. So Satan doesn't have to talk to the man directly. He can talk to the woman and she will get the man to do his bidding. That's why it's very important for a man to vet the woman and also get control of his lust and his loins. If we go back to Galatians 5:19, what we see is now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these. And the first one it names is adultery. And the second one is fornication. So we see that in the list of these works of the flesh, the list of these sins, they start out with adultery, which is you breaking that covenant with God through fornication, and then just outright fornication. So we know that sins of the flesh, i.e. fornication, sexual immorality, is linked to all of the other heinous crimes. Once you don't honor your temple, you let Satan inside. And what Satan inside is inside, you know what's going to happen. Somebody said, well, I think that's a stretch. Again, the young man, 11 people dead, 29 injured, and they got no national media coverage. So I don't know what could be a stretch behind that. Now, what you meant to say was that's a stretcher because folks are going out on a stretcher. And again, the reason why this problem persists is because what's behind the mask is what blackness really is. And when we talk about blackness, that means no accountability. That means that means no matter what happens, you must always blame something or someone else. You know, they can't help it, y'all. They have to. It's funny. Nobody, if you notice, black folks can never just say, you know what, you're right, we wrong. They can never just say we wrong and just be quiet. You notice That is a cultural phenomenon. They can never just say we are wrong. Never. It's always something else. Let's continue.
Us as black people, do we have any allies? Do we have a race that fucks?
White people.
Bro, shut the fuck up, bro.
A white person is more likely to speak to you and embrace you out in public or outside of your normal environment before Mexican or
Even
Asian.
Africans and like Nigerians say crazy shit about African Americans.
Yeah. Nobody rock with us but white American, homie.
But what is it about us though that makes us the most hated?
We're disrespectful. We're arrogant.
Loud.
We have an ethnocentric ideology belief as if we're better than everybody because we think we were the first.
We think we're old.
Yeah. We're entitled.
Yeah.
We're lazy. When you get on the job with most black people, everybody look at them and see, man, that nigga, we don't work as hard as other people. So it's obvious why they don't like us. Just look around on your job. We the loudest. We come in. If we having a bad day, we go tell them off. We ain't take what we're not gonna put up with. And we're not the brightest. We're not. We used to be at the front of the pack. I'm in the 60s and the 50s. We're not the brightest anymore. And we ain't the strongest and the toughest like we think we are. That's why the white boys got into UFC and started kicking ass.
So again, uncomfortable truth, but it's true. And everything he described is really black culture. That's what he described. And so the issue I was talking with someone today about a narcissist and how it's really almost impossible to cure narcissism just because the narcissist won't take accountability for their actions. And I see the same thing when it comes to black people and black culture. Black folks will never look inward to say this has to change. They won't. They'll say it needs to change, but then glorify it in the very next breath. If you think about it, we celebrate sin. We celebrate sin. We celebrate it. What Charleston White is saying is just a culture. And so now they're telling you that these types of people, these people should be in charge. Because what they're essentially saying is, and when they talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, what they're really saying is that black people should be in charge. But we know from BLM said they wanted trans in leadership. So we know they want to put black folks in charge to let the trans be in charge, because it can't just go from trans to leadership. It has to be a gateway, has to be a buffer. So the goal is you put black people in positions of power, and then black folks open the gates up for the trans to take over. So when you go to your school, the principal is trans. You go to your job, your boss is trans. You go to police chief is trans. Fire chief is trans. CEOs, everything is trans. And then once that happens, you know what's next. It's going to be pure and utter death, destruction, and damnation. Let's continue. Let me go back.
I recall situations where we pulled up when the FBI car was sitting like on the side, and I had to live through this and kind of look at the good and the bad of it. Living in a nice house and driving nice cars, that affected me so much because in my mind he was gone. So it was like
Now, this was produced by Howard University Television, and it's called DC Street Legends, Antonio Yo Jones. Think about this now. Think about the HBCUs saying they don't have enough funding, they don't have enough money, but they're producing a segment called DC Street Legends.
you had to readjust as a young boy coming up to a man. You had to kind of get grist to yourself and understand this is what it is.
I'm Dave Winfield.
I'm Ralph Sampson.
I'm Julius Irving, and we're all teaming up to say no to drugs.
We speak with great concern about the drug problem in America today, but we fail to appreciate or address it for what it really is, the number one threat to our national security. America is under attack, literally under attack by an enemy who is well-financed, well-supplied, and well-armed, and fully capable of declaring total war against the nation and its people, as we've seen in Colombia.
Griselda Trujillo Blanco, better known as the godmother of the Colombian drug underworld, the biggest guy from D.C., and someone from one of the largest cartels in Colombia. You'd know it would be inevitable if they'd come together.
What else could we do? It's right there. The people that have direct access to the narcotics that you need.
Back then, the district was murder capital of the country.
In the late 1980s and early 90s, it was a lawless combat zone.
An automatic gunfire rang out, and the crack cocaine epidemic helped fuel it.
So I want you to think about what was the narrative surrounding all of the murders and all the carnage that ensued from the crack era. It got summed up from a movie clip. I'm going to show you the movie clip. I'm going to show you the movie clip that justified all of this. And this was Hollywood justifying all of the death, destruction, and damnation that this caused. Give me 1 second. Then I'm going to come back to this real quick. I just want to just come to this real quick. Now, in this scene, I want you to look at before Furious Styles is about to preach and enlighten these young brothers on what's going on. They don't even feel safe where they are. I see they right off of Fifth Ave over there. Fifth Ave over there off of Slauson. I ain't want to get, I used to, back in the day, my ex, grew up on Fifth Ave and Slauson. But Anyway, so you see these young men get out the car and they're looking around because they know it's dangerous. Now, there aren't any white people around, so why would they be afraid? There aren't any police around. There aren't any white people around, no KKK, no white nationalists, nobody's around. So why are these young men get out of the car looking around fearing for their safety as they're about to get the speech on consciousness?
Hey man, I don't know about all this fury. I was walking around motherfucking Compton and all, man. Rick, it's the 90s. Can't afford to be afraid of our own people anymore, man. Did you two knuckleheads come on?
Listen to what he says. Listen. Now think about all the killing from gangs and the drug selling and all the violence. Listen to what he says.
Two knuckleheads come on? What's your people anymore, man? Hey man, I don't know about all this fury. I was walking around motherfucking Compton and all, man. Rick, it's the 90s. Can't afford to be afraid of our own people anymore, man.
He said it's the 90s. We can't afford to be afraid of our own people anymore. Now, it's people dying every day where they are, either dying or getting shot, babies getting aborted, crack being sold, crack being smoked, babies going into the system, somebody getting robbed, somebody. And this man said, this is a movie, but this is art imitates life. And this is Hollywood trying to make you comfortable with your community being a place of death, destruction, and damnation. So he says, it's the 90s. We can't afford to be afraid of our own people anymore. So they want you to believe that all of this stuff that you're seeing, that this was nationwide in these Black inner cities, all that you're seeing, you shouldn't worry about that. Just come around your people and risk your life. And then as you sitting there laying down and you stop, just say, we got to stick together. That's what they want. They want you to be a martyr. He's out here trying to help us, man. We got to come together. That's what they want. They want somebody to die because Satan always requires a blood sacrifice. So they want somebody to die. And then when the blood is shed, they want to say, okay, now let's come together and talk. That might last for a couple of months, but it'll go back to the killing again. And so my point is, even these movies, it was so bad that Hollywood said, we got to change this narrative because we're not going to be able to push this future agenda. We won't be able to do it. We got to justify why Black folks are acting this way.
Did you two knuckleheads come on? Why don't y'all take a look at that sign up there? See what it says? Cash for your home. You know what that is? Billboard. What are y'all, Amos and Andy? Are you stepping and he's fetches? I'm talking about the message, what it stands for. It's called gentrification. It's what happens when the property value of a certain area is brought down. Huh? You listening? Yeah. To bring the property value down. They can buy the land at a lower price. Then they move all the people out, raise the property value, and sell it at a profit. Now,
So, if you notice what Furious Styles said, he said they lower the property value. So I want to ask you all a question. Who is this they lowering the property value when the neighborhood is all Black? Who is this they making the property value lower? Top Herc asked a question and he said, Blanche, why only the light-skinned dudes have the knowledge? I asked, listen, I can't, you're right. Top Herc said, why is it only the light-skinned black dudes got the knowledge? And they the most revolutionary. They always kick it. We done seen it from Huey P. Newton to Farrakhan. We done seen it. Huey P. Newton, the Farrakhan, and the Juicy Smollett. But he said they bring the property value down. It's called gentrification. So my question is, how does it actually work? Were white people coming in and just taking property? No. No. The property value was lower because the neighborhood was uninhabitable. Nobody in their right mind, if they had options, would live there. Why would I live somewhere where folks are dying every day, drugs are being sold on the streets, and it's normal? The children can't read and write on grade level, and it's normal. Babies out of wedlock, and it's like, why would somebody live in this area if they had a choice to live somewhere else? So the property value is brought down because nobody wants to live there. But of course, the man with the knowledge is going to blame this infamous they.
We need to do is we need to keep everything in our neighborhood, everything black. Black owned with black money. Just like the Jews, the Italians, the Mexicans, and the Koreans do.
Ain't nobody from outside bringing down the property value. It's these folk shooting each other and selling that crack rock and shit.
Well, how you think the crack rock gets into the country? We don't own any planes. We don't own no ships. But we are not the people who are flying and floating that shit in here. I know every time you turn on the TV, that's what you see. Black people selling the rock, pushing the rock, pushing the rock. Yeah, I know. But that wasn't a problem as long as it was here. It wasn't a problem until it was in Iowa and it showed up on Wall Street where there are hardly any black people. Now, if you want to talk about guns, why is it that there's a gun shop on almost every corner in this community?
Why?
Tell you why. For the same reason that there's a liquor store on almost every corner in the black community. Why? They want us to kill ourselves.
Now, keep in mind, I was young when this movie came out. And I remember this scene being the most powerful scene in the movie. Because what this scene did was, what he just did was he just justified all of the carnage that black folks were committing. So when the old man comes, and again, this is how Satan works. Satan is going to make you choose between good and evil. Whether you want to make the choice or not, he's going to make you choose. So the old man comes up and he says, it ain't nobody from the outside bringing this property down. It's them. And Furious Styles says, we not flying the drugs in here. We don't own any planes. So now, when he says that, that gave black people a pass to continue to do what they're doing. I remember all throughout the 90s, they kept saying, we don't fly it in here. Think about the character of a nation that if Satan puts a vice in front of you, you have to indulge in it. Even if there was a government plot and conspiracy to take down the black community, who made you indulge? Like, who made you want to kill somebody in your neighborhood over a color or even over money? Who made you want to sell drugs to women and children? Who made you want to be a whoremonger? Like think about what goes on in the black community and ask yourself, why is it that anytime it comes to a vice, that black people automatically have to indulge in it? Like, where did that thought come from? It came from programming and propaganda. The old man just said, it's not nobody from the outside bringing the property down, because the old man, think about how long he's lived. He's seen the deterioration of his community. He's seen it firsthand. And so he knows that the more white folks left, the worse the community got, because they call it white flight. White flight is the biggest indictment on Black culture, because it literally proves that when white folks aren't around, Black people get worse. And so the old man says, it's not anybody from the outside, it's these people in here. And so Furious Styles goes ahead and literally, this is one of the most detrimental scenes in cinematic history. This is one of the most detrimental, and there'll be another scene like this when it comes to, you know, movies on like pedophilia or molestation. There'll be another scene like this. There'll be another scene that you'll look back on and say this was a pivot. But this scene right here was very instrumental in the destruction of the Black community, because what it did was just gave Black folks a pass to do what they were doing. I remember all throughout the 90s, Black folks kept saying, we're not flying it in here. We're not bringing it in here. And because Black folks have an infantile mind when it comes to white people, they went with it. And I understand why the white liberal is the way that that he or she is. Because when Black people get around white people, they almost give up their sovereignty. They almost say that we can't behave or do anything for ourselves unless you all intervene. So I understand where white liberals get that savior complex from, because it's almost like when Black folks are around them, they're looking for them to do something for them. So I get it. The white liberal savior complex isn't all just narcissism. It isn't all just poor character. It isn't all just, you know, them being degenerates. It's also when they come around Black folks don't treat them based on their character. And so this scene in this movie literally catapulted the destruction of the Black community, because it gave Black folks an excuse. I'm gonna rewind it.
Mexicans and the Koreans do.
Ain't nobody from outside bringing down the property value. It's these folk shooting each other and selling that crack rock and shit.
Well, how you think the crack rock gets into the country? We don't own any planes. We don't own no ships. But we are not the people who are flying and floating that shit in here. I know every time you turn on the TV, that's what you see. Black people selling the rock, pushing the rock, pushing the rock. Yeah, I know. But that wasn't a problem as long as it was here. It wasn't a problem until it was in Iowa and it showed up on Wall Street, where there are hardly any Black people. Now, if you want to talk about guns, why is it that there's a gun shop on almost every corner in this community?
Why?
Tell you why. For the same reason that there's a liquor store on almost every corner in the Black community. Why? They want us to kill ourselves. You go out to Beverly Hills, you don't see that shit, but they want us to kill ourselves. Yeah, the best way you can destroy a people, you take away their ability to reproduce themselves.
Yeah.
Who is it that's dying out here on these streets every night? Y'all. Young brothers like yourselves.
What am I supposed to do? The fool roll up, try to smoke me? I'm gonna shoot the motherfucker if he don't kill me first.
You're doing exactly what they want you to do. You have to think, young brother, about your future. Huh?
What I found funny is all throughout the 90s, the Black man pointing to, you gotta, that was the thing of the 90s, but they was just doing this. You gotta, like, that was gonna solve the problem. If they could think, they wouldn't be here in the first place. All they did in the 90s was point, you gotta think, young brother, use your mind. See, we are no longer in chains. Now we are prisoners of our mind. We are in mental slavery. They thought that was going to wake folks up. If they could think, they wouldn't be doing that in the first place. If you was in the 90s, if you grew up in the 90s, everybody was doing this. I said, none of these folks got any brains. The guy asked him, well, what am I supposed to do if somebody wants to come and smoke me? What am I supposed to do if somebody is supposed to, young brother, you're doing what they want you to do? Who is this they? White folks didn't create the Crips and the Bloods. White folks didn't do all this stuff. Black folks did this. You got to use your mind. And every black movie of the 90s is doing this. Your mind, young brother. This is the weapon you need right here. You don't need a gun. You need your mind. This right here never runs out of bullets. A gun has to be reloaded. A gun needs bullets. A gun needs a hand to pull the trigger. Should I say a finger to pull the trigger? But it needs a hand to hold it. But the mind doesn't have any limits. This is all we got in the 90s, a bunch of foolishness. Everybody pointing to their temple. And the end result was death, destruction, and damnation. Am I lying? No, I'm just saying. Everything in the 90s was pointing to that brain. Top Herc said, I think that speech was a ripoff scene from the Mac. Well, again, all of this stuff it's all regurgitated. Nothing new under the sun. I mean, it's the same thing over and over. So again, the goal of it was to blame white people for the crime element in the black community. And once you point the finger to white people, then it justifies the crime. On the subconscious level, once you say the reason why we're doing crime is because of white people, then you justify the crime because you're saying that they're making us do it. And so to me, the most powerful scene for black people was that scene in Boys in the Hood. The old man said, it's not the people on the outside bringing the property value down. It's these fools right here. And Furious Styles says, we not flying it in here. We're not bringing it in here. Black folks ran with that. I'm just saying. You got to use your mind, young brother. Use your mind. I know it's hard, young brother, but you got to think, young brother. Bunch of foolishness. A bunch of foolishness.
California is a weird state because they have laws for pedestrians. You know, like you cross the street, they have laws for pedestrians, but they don't have laws for people at night when cops accidentally shoot people. I mean, they accidentally shoot more niggas out here than any place in the world. Every time you pick up paper, niggas accidentally shot in the ass. How do you accidentally shoot a nigga 6 times in the chest? Well, my gun fell and just went crazy.
And you see even Richard Pryor, and this is what I mean. You know, we had a show with Judge Joe Brown, and so much of the nostalgia behind Black is based on a lie. And so folks have an emotional attachment to this moral hierarchy they believe that Black folks kept and held. But I venture to say that Black folks never held it. Like having a family was the American way. Like going to church on Sunday, having a family, that was just what Americans did. It wasn't exclusive to Black people. Like having conservative values and all of these things, it wasn't exclusive. This is what Americans did, period. So what we are touting as this glory era or age for Black people was simply just status quo for America. Like Black folks weren't reinventing the wheel. They weren't doing anything special. They were just doing what Americans did. Most decent Americans had a family. They worked, went to church on Sunday. Like this is what happened. So there's so much nostalgia given to a time period And in all actuality, black folks never held the moral hierarchy. They never held the high ground. They just didn't. Because what they were doing was done by most Americans. And so somebody like Richard Pryor, he's just making jokes about police accidentally shooting black people. But I bet he won't make a joke about police getting shot by black people. He won't make a joke about the Black Panthers having shootouts with the police. I'm from California, so I know a time period where, put it this way, the reason why the police had to change their tactics during the 90s, late 80s and 90s, was because they were having these altercations with citizens that were of the crime element. So the police were like, listen, we can't compete. Look at the guns they got. They have military grade weaponry. We can't compete with them. Think about the guns black folks had in the hood at their disposal. Uzis, MAC-10s, AKs, like all the stuff that takes off limbs and does damage. So they never talked about how the police were having to engage in these quote unquote combat zones with these people. These folks were shooting back at the police. The media is telling you police brutality, police brutality. The police are saying, listen, we getting killed out here. So the reason why the police changed their tactics was because they were dying. They were getting shot at. I remember growing up, many a times, the gangsters talking about, we had a shootout with the cops last night. They used to brag about it. We had a shootout with the cops. They used to brag about it. So this notion that black folk were just sitting there just getting beat on and shot by the police is cap. They called it a war zone for a reason. And then you got these folks out here spitting this propaganda. The media is a powerful tool, because what the media is able to do is program. It's no different when they say that the abused identifies with the abuser. They call it Stockholm syndrome. It's the same way with the media. The media is able to abuse us through propaganda and programming. So then it's so much to where then you start trusting the media, even though you know they're lying. Even though they have a bad history, you still trust them because you've been beat down, demoralized. You got the media saying it. You got politicians saying it. You got Hollywood saying it. You got entertainers saying it. You got athletes. Everybody is saying that you're literally bombarded from all sides. So you start to identify with your abuser. It is Stockholm syndrome, because what they're doing is criminal. They're literally brainwashing a whole generation of people through lies and deception. And it's been going on for a long time. Norman Lear, I said this on Monday, Norman Lear met with the Black Panthers and they told him that we want a show on TV that shows black people in a positive light and not poor. And Norman Lear says after that meeting, he goes and creates the spinoff of the Jeffersons, which was from All in the Family. How did the Black Panthers have so much pull in Hollywood? On the set of the Mac, there's a scene where there's a pimp in the Mac and he's talking. That guy that's a pimp talking, he's an actual pimp in real life. That guy had the folks in the community as extras on that movie, The Mac. Well, guess what? The Black Panthers wanted in on that piece of the pie too. So what the Black Panthers did was the Black Panthers had a war with that pimp. The Black Panthers went to war with that pimp. He ended up getting killed and gunned down midway through production of the Mac. And then guess what? Then the Black Panthers came on the scene, and they're the ones that they bought their people to be in the movie. The Black Panthers took out this pimp who had all them prostitutes and folks from the community as extras on that movie getting paid. They took him out, then they brought their own people in. This is documented information. Now, how is it that these people are making a film called The Mac and folks are dying? How is Hollywood making films and people are dying? Folks on the street level are jockeying for position to get their people in front of that camera. So this stuff has been going on. It's been a very intricate plot. And black folks have been none the wiser, not because they weren't intelligent, not because white folks were smarter, but because all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. That's why. And so that component was removed from the black Bliggity archives. It was removed from the ancient Bliggity library. That, oh no, all have sinned. You remove that. No, they have sinned. So again, black folks have never held the moral high ground. Never. And if we take it back to the Bible, there is nowhere in the Bible where God's people held the moral high ground. Not as a collective. There have been individuals, there have been pockets of people, but there's never been a united front on we're going to do the will of God. Never. And we can go from Adam and Eve, we can go all the way back down to right now. Never. So what the devil did was the devil told black folks that because white folks are bad, you automatically have the moral high ground. Because you are oppressed, because you are a victim, you have the moral high ground. Because you are impoverished, you have the moral high ground. Because you are without, you have the moral high ground. And it's the same thing today. Anytime we see somebody disenfranchised, the assumption is that someone caused it. And the Bible clearly says that if a man don't work, he don't eat. Then God says, a diligent hand maketh rich. So if a man don't work, he eats. A diligent hand maketh rich. So with these godly principles, somehow, some way, all that got lost. And now, if somebody is downtrodden in life, it's somebody else's fault. Where do we get that from? Satan. Because Satan is the accuser of his brother. So when you see black folks pointing that finger, that is a satanic trait. To always point the finger is what Satan does. He's the accuser. And black folks have made it not just a habit, but a culture of blaming someone or something else. That's why black folks fall for all the propaganda, because it aligns with where they are spiritually. So when it comes to climate change, it's something else's fault. So yeah, we believe in climate change. At the core of climate change is what? Greed has caused climate change. At the core of greed is what? White people have caused climate change, because white people taught the rest of the folks of color how to be greedy. White folks created capitalism. Capitalism is what's the cause of climate change. You see what I'm saying to you? If we travel down back to everything we see, it goes back to the white and black dynamic. That is the foundation of everything we see in the world. I don't care what it is. You could take it all the way back to how the black man and black woman and black child were treated in America. Now you got to ask yourself, if everything is based on how black folks were treated in America, how real is the information they're telling you? How truthful is it? If the foundation of globalism, this global agenda, is what happened to black folks in America, then what makes you think what happened to black folks in America was actually true? If we judge a tree by the fruit that it bears, then how in the world could black folks be engaged in a righteous fight and the end result be what we see today? It doesn't make any sense. You're telling me that black folks have been fighting a righteous fight, but the fruits of that fight are going to lead to globalization. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense because a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. And so the reason why black folks were disenfranchised in America, it wasn't because of white people. It was because they chose to turn their back on God. But here goes a secret. Anybody that turns their back on God gets the same results. It's not just a black thing, it's anybody. Anybody that turns their back on God gets the same results. The only difference is black folks have made a culture out of turning their back on God. That's the difference. So now most actions, most thoughts, most behaviors, most impulses, most drives, all of those things are all infused in the culture and they're all anti-God. I saw a video today. I didn't get a chance to finish watching it, but Chad sent it to me. And the title of the video is, I Don't Like Chad O. Jackson. I'm going to watch the video and I guarantee that the person is going to be mad at Chad based on a lie. Because what Chad is saying is the truth. So you have to, so if you're up, listen, you cannot like Chad, but what he's saying is the truth. So if you say, I don't like Chad, I can't argue that. But if you say, I don't like what Chad said, I'm going to say based on what? And I think Vic said, was it obligatory? Of course. Of course. And as he's playing a video with Chad talking, he's lighting up a blunt. Can't make it up. As he's playing a video of Chad talking, he's lighting up a blunt. Now, I want you to think about, in particular, Chad and Chuck, and think about the amount of research that these guys do, whether you agree or not. Just think about the amount of research they do and imagine you brush it off as they just sellouts. Imagine all these countless hours. Imagine, I'll venture to say, over 10,000 hours. So that would give them a mastery level of what they're doing. So if we say they've done over 10,000 hours of research and studying, that would make them a master. Imagine two men on mastery level when it comes to actual history, and it just gets brushed off as just they sellouts. Now imagine that attitude. Imagine that kind of attitude when it comes to the devil. Now the devil knows, you know what? If they brush off the X's and O's and the details and all this, then I can just pretty much show them anything and they hooked. That's what happens. That's what happens. This is why propaganda and programming wins. It's not because black folks are stupid or white folks are more smart. It's not, that's not it. It's the culture and it's the spirit behind the culture. If you don't care, the devil lives in the details. So if you don't care about the details, then guess what? The devil got you. Do you know if you get stuck in the woods, you got to know what plants you can eat and not eat. But just to brush it off and say, man, I ain't going in the woods. Like that's the attitude black folks have. So Marcus B says, I'll give you an example. In ancient time when we was kings, we was envying the other nations for not being bound to God's laws. Now the Most High has given other nations the upper hand, but their end will be bleak. And again, this kind of rhetoric is why black folks are going to suffer. Because what he doesn't understand is God is into the honoring and not honoring business. And those that honor God get honored. You don't honor God by your skin color. And that's what black folks think because I'm black, I'm automatically getting a pass. No. So the reason why the Most High has given nations the upper hand is because those other nations exemplify godly principles. God's no respecter of person. So God isn't picking and choosing. God is determining what he's doing based on the actions of the people. So a nation is blessed because they do blessed things, not because they're black. If black people were so special and wonderful, then why would they be envying other nations? That's a character flaw. That's a major character flaw because guess what? The other nations weren't envying them. So already if we start this game off, black folks 0, other nations 1. Black folks failed to envy, lost a point. Other nations weren't envying black folks, gained a point. You see how that works? This kind of rhetoric is what's destroying black people. And then he says in the end, their fate's going to be bleak. Does anybody believe that black folks are going to get a pass on Judgment Day? The chosen people choose God. There ain't nobody chosen through birthright. The chosen people choose God. God tried the birthright thing. It didn't work. God literally said, I'm going to choose this people right here, and y'all still told God to kick rocks. So God said, okay, everybody can have access now. Y'all don't want it, everybody can have it. So what gives us access is faith. The chosen people choose God. Charleston White said it, entitled, you believe that you're going to heaven because you're black? You believe God favors you because you're black? How arrogant is that? You believe that God is showing favor to you because you're black. So that means that your behaviors and actions don't matter. You're already blessed and favored. So now if something bad happens in your life, it ain't God, it ain't you, it's white people. Let's continue. Let me go back to that. Let me go back to this production by Howard.
People lining up 2 to 3 deep around the block to buy drugs.
At the center of it all, Rayful Edmond.
Edmond ran the biggest crack and cocaine distribution ring in D.C. history.
I seen somebody at that time that was bigger than life.
At one point, he made up to $60,000 a day.
I came home in 1989, and the man that was there that made sure I was all right was Tony Jones.
I think one of the most important things is I'm originally from Florida, right? So I moved up here in the late 80s, and that was like just a huge culture shock for me, right? You coming from like palm trees and brightness and clean, or what you consider clean, you know what I mean, to like concrete. One thing that stood out to me that I learned eventually is just that DC was its own.
It was a time where money was just easily accessible. We saw fancy cars all the time. We saw, when we went to school, everybody had to be freshly dressed, the nicest clothes. Everybody was our uncle. The younger generation now, they say unc. We were saying the whole word uncle and aunts.
You know, they dressed their own way. They talked their own way. They just did not care about what the rest of the country was doing, especially at a time like for blacks, when we were first starting to kind of really get our shine on television outside of sports. Music is starting to kick in. We're starting to get our element on TV, starting to see us more and see these things. And a lot of that was coming from New York, right? You know, that was like, so New York was teaching the rest of the country how to talk, how to dress, how to do these things. And DC, the influence was not there. We had our own way of dressing. We almost did the opposite on purpose.
You know, the only time we could obtain that was when we got old enough to get a Summer Youth job through the Mayor Barrett program. And we soon found out that wasn't enough money to live the kind of lifestyle that we were seeing.
So name me, so far, they're talking about DC, Chocolate City. Have they mentioned oppression? What are they mentioning as their desires? Their desires were to be fresh. Their desires were to show the world how much money they had. Their desires were to look good. Their desires weren't to what? Get out of poverty, fight against the system, be better men. No. Their intentions were to show the world how fly they could be. They're not referencing these times with disgust. They're not referencing these times as the worst times ever. They're happy about these times. And these times were filled with literal death, destruction, and damnation. We're 3 minutes in, 3.5 minutes in, they ain't mentioned oppression one time. All they mentioned was wanting to have a certain lifestyle. So we can see the motivation behind the crack epidemic wasn't because white folks threw the drugs in. It wasn't because black folks wanted to get out of poverty. It was because black folks wanted to be worshiped. They wanted to become living idols. They wanted folks to see them and idolize them. These young men were idolizing drug dealers. They were idolizing pimps and hustlers. And then you tie it all together by calling everybody uncle, everybody aunt. So now you all into this thing together.
So, like I said, we were impressionable. So we wanted that. We wanted what we saw our older homies doing in the neighborhood.
And I grew to appreciate, people standing on their own, being something different, and standing on being something different. When you're a kid, you see certain things. You see these cars, you see the lifestyle, but you don't see like all the layers behind it, right? But you start to remember things. You remember somebody give you $100 when $5 was a lot of money and these things like that. So, I remember it like being a bragging point, right? Like somebody be like, oh, my cousin is this, or my cousin hang with Rayful. Like that was just like, that's how big it was. Rayful's story was bigger than life at the time. He was like, just like the name that you would hear, especially like, after he got locked up and the news started hitting things of that nature. My man, Big E, is the one that kind of put me on Antonio and was like, and I had heard the name, but he was like, no, I think you need to really do your research on who Antonio Jones and what he meant.
That militant lifestyle in the streets, in the neighborhoods, of course, it would seem crazy to some people, but we came up impressed by that and we just thought we were untouchable because of that. Our big uncles would, we would protect it, would have us wearing bulletproof vests. In my career, which I don't think was meant for me to continue in that lifestyle, I got away with some things, but karma caught up with me and, I got shot at 21. So that took me all the way down because I was paralyzed from the neck down. So, that time I spent in the hospital recovering from that gunshot wound let me know, I had time to decide, well, this is not the route I'm supposed to take.
So it started at this house right here, right?
And what's funny is, it's somebody on here and, his name is We Stay on Code. But what's funny is that he's saying, this is what he just said. He said, I'm using Rayford Edmonds' story to point the finger at all black people. Now, we can all agree that Rayford Edmonds is not a figure that is condemned in the black community. Even though what Rayford Edmonds was doing was destroying his community, he spoke about with reverence. Now, my question is, what positive thing could Rayford Edmonds do if he's selling drugs and folks are dying? Folks are getting shot, territory is being claimed, people are becoming addicted to crack, children are losing their family members, mothers, fathers. Think about how many fathers got lost during this time period. Think about how many children lost their father either to gun violence or the prison system. How many children grew up without a father that Rayford Austin was directly responsible for? Now imagine all of that happening and this person comes on my platform and gets mad at me. Not the mothers crying, not the young man getting killed or going to prison, none of that. Black folks will step over thousands upon thousands of black bodies to get mad at me. Think about that. Think about the mind state of a person to say, I don't care about all the death and destruction. I'm going to get mad at you for bringing it up. I grew up in the crack era, so I saw what it was. And I saw how it was glorified. I saw it with my own eyes. Members in my family, I saw it. So this person wants me to not talk about the destruction that happened during that time period. Think about that. Think about the psychology behind a person that says, I know all this death and stuff happened, but you can't talk about it. And now he's lying and saying he was condemned. Look at him lying and saying he's condemned. And we watching a special where he isn't condemned. You're not going to find one special on Rayford Austin that says he was condemned, not one. If y'all want to get some homework, do some homework, I challenge you all to find me a documentary that condemns Rayford Austin. Or I mean, my bad, Rayford Edmond. I challenge anybody. And so what they do is, because they can't refute what I'm saying, they're either going to just lie or condemn me. They're not going to refute what I'm saying because they can't. You can't justify a grown man giving crack to a child to sell. You can't justify it. You can't justify a man giving a woman crack that's pregnant. You can't justify it. You can't justify somebody killing somebody over $20. You can't justify this stuff. So what they do is get mad at me for saying it. I get it. My bad, Greg. Rayford Edmonds, my bad. I don't know why I keep saying Rayford Austin. Why I keep saying, let's skip to my Lou. My bad, Rayford Edmonds, my bad. But again, they'll get mad at me. But if we have a discussion about the culture and what has actually been done, they don't want to do it. See, you lying this whole IG live. See? Listen to what this person says real quick. Marcus says, he gives good criticism for the black community, but doesn't give the actual answers that would save, redeem the black community and make it our culture and the thing to do and be. So who wants to tell Marcus my solutions? Who of those that follow me want to tell Marcus my solutions? Because Marcus obviously is obligatory because he doesn't know anything, but he feels the need to get on the soapbox and talk to me. So who wants to tell Marcus what my solutions are? If anybody want to enlighten Marcus, because I can tell him what the solutions are. El Kabong said accountability. A goddess Navi said, boy, shut up. Bye. Will Wade says, turn to God. Angela says, get right with God. Vic said, I bet you Marcus hasn't read the Enuma Elish. Dre says, stop believing you're black and follow God. Rechurch says, repent and believe the gospel. Responsibility. So clearly, Marcus, everybody on here seems to have the answer, but you don't. So am I to assume that they're all wrong and you're right? Or am I to assume that you don't know what you're talking about? Maybe you should just sit back and listen. Look at him. He said, yes, but in detail. What is get right with God? What is black? So again, your identity should be in Christ. That's a good question. So your identity should be in Christ. So that means when you wake up in the morning, you should identify with being black. Because black is a social construct that was created by Satan. So that means your identity has to rest in Christ. So that means open your Bible up and you follow how Christ lived. So in the Bible, we have fruits of the Spirit. So we got fruits of the, we have certain things we can do to be on the right path. Now he says, I have the answer. You don't have the answer. You wouldn't be asking me. You don't have the answer. You don't have the answer. You don't have the answer. Because somebody telling you to be accountable, to follow God's word, if that ain't enough, then you don't know the answer. So again, there's many things that we can do. We are to be born again. There are fruits of the Spirit, but our identity should rest in Christ. So that way, it's a lifestyle change. Christ said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So your life needs to model Christ. So again, on a basic level, black folks can't be okay with abortion. This is simple. Black folks can't be okay with your children not being able to read, write, and do math on grade level. So that means that your child should not be leaving your house illiterate. That's a reflection on the parent, not the school system. See, the problem with black folks is black folks don't want to master the basics. The basics. Don't throw trash in your community. Value the appearance of your community. Have some dignity. This is simple stuff. Care about what you put in your mouth. So we keep putting the cart before the horse. You got to master the basics. The basics is the Bible says that obedience is greater than sacrifice. So again, these are simple instructions that black folks have made complicated. And it's because they don't want to do the basics. So the basic is don't have sex before marriage. How about that? How about y'all stop fornicating before marriage? How about you stop making all these single parent households, all these single mothers, spreading all these STDs? You know, black folks lead the nation in STDs and being single mothers and broken households. How about you stop fornicating? If you stop fornicating, you eliminate the STDs, the single parent households, and the trauma. So again, black folks have to master the basics. It ain't rocket science. These politicians, these Democrats, tell you all to go against God every day. And you still vote for him, you still listen to him. Kamala Harris just had a campaign on children being aborted or children being trans. And she got 88% of the black vote. Kamala Harris just ran a campaign on abortion and trans and got 88% of the black vote. So again, black folks' problem ain't racism. It ain't the economy. It ain't the system. It ain't the country. Black folks' problem is they can't master the basics. And the basics are don't listen to a person telling you to kill yourself and your offspring. Simple.
It had a whole porch on it. It was one of our stash houses. We used to be in there every night. So when we in there one night, everybody ripping and running. So they had already had a contract hit out on us, Metropolitan Police, 5th District anyway. I get caught in the alley one time and I ain't got my hammer on me. Everybody know what a hammer is. I didn't have that on me, so I said, oh, they're the police. So they running and ripping. So I ran down the alley because I didn't want to go back in the house. We had too much money and too many, weapons and stuff like that in the house. So when I hit the alley, I jumped through that yard right there. I knew the lady that owned the house. I tried to get in the tree, but I said, dang, I can't get in the tree. They right here. So I had to climb up the pole. The reason why I went up the pole is because I'm empty-handed, so I ain't gonna just let them get me like that. So I slid up that pole right there and stayed up there. They looked all around. They was in the alley for about 15, 20 minutes. They never looked up. And I was up in them wires right there with them telephone poles. I was right there. Some of these buildings was abandoned, right, back in the day.
So this guy, Antonio Yo Jones, claims that the police had a hit out on them. Now, think about all the folks they killing, all the drugs they selling, but they overshadow all that and say the police had a hit out on us. Think about that. Even in a moment where you could take accountability and say, you know what? We was out here tearing these streets apart. We was out here killing and running mayhem. Instead of saying any of that, they say the police had a hit out on them. I'm going to ask y'all a question. If the police had a hit out on them, then how'd they make it? If the police had a hit out on them, how'd they make it? That's how you know it's a lie. If the police wanted to get you, they'll get you. They come back the next day. The police, it's their job. They will come back every day till they killed y'all. So the fact that they did let you know what he's saying is a lie. The police could arrest you, take you somewhere, smoke you, and be done with you. It ain't got to be no elaborate plot to catch y'all. It's easy. There is no elaborate plot to catch y'all. Y'all either going to end up shot, dead, or get caught and go to prison. So what he said is a lie. It's not true. It is not true. If the police want you, they're going to get you. Because let y'all tell it, the police are hunting y'all down and executing y'all in the streets. Ain't that what y'all say? Y'all are saying the police are hunting you all down and executing you all in the streets. So what stopped them back then from doing it? Nothing. Because it's not true. It's not true. Y'all was getting locked up. Boys, y'all was getting locked up.
So what we should do is we'll have boards on and we'll get the guys that do carpentry work, the guys who give me the keys, all them, we'll put hinges on the wood so you can think it's locked, but we just open it up and it'll come right open. We had one side of the floors tore out. So if the police coming in to chase us, if they don't know what building they're in, we knew what building we was in, so we'd run on the right side of the hallway. If you run on the left side of the hallway, you're gonna drop all the way down to the basement. So we kept that. Then we had up at top, we had big ropes hanging down from the skylight, and we used to jimmy up the ropes, get on the roofs, and we had houses down on that end, so we'd come off on one of the other houses if the police down in here. And we had a big shootout one time with the police right in this alley right here, because we used to keep the alley booby trap. We had wires, we had refrigerators, we had washing machine, anything was big and bulky to stop anybody from coming through the alleyways. All in all, it just was one big picture. And we just, did what we had to do.
I'm gonna say, I would say probably.
So you see how elaborate this whole operation was. Again, he mentioned shootout with the police, again. So he mentioned the whole intricate system that the whole neighborhood was a part of. The whole neighborhood was a part of this. They running on people's roofs and setting up ropes and booby traps. The whole neighborhood had to be a part of this. The whole neighborhood had to consent for this. And that's my point. The neighborhood consented to this. This is culture. You can only do this you can only do this with the consent of the neighborhood. Everything he laid out was with the neighborhood's consent. Because again, the culture says you celebrate those that are the most destructive. You celebrate the drug dealers and the murderers.
Just the inner workings of the Rayful family and the organization. You think like he was this huge figure, right? Even on a national level, and you just think, you know, it's the aura about him was special, but you also see why, you know, nothing ever happened to him, why he was never touched, how this operation was able to get to the size that it was, and you know, we do all this research and they always come back to this guy right here, you know, that he was a protection, that he was respected on all corners of the city, and you know, he came through and kind of cleaned up shop. And as soon as he did that, Rayful money just started piling.
So let me ask you all a question. How does this guy, Antonio Yo Jones, clean up shop? How does this guy, Antonio Jones, clean up shop? What methods is he using to make it so that Rayful Edmond can be this drug kingpin? What do you think he was doing? Now, he just spoke about this guy and Rayful Edmond in high regard. Club Rico said by selling poison to everybody. Well, that's what Rayful was doing, but what was this guy doing? Thank you, Miss Graves. Pum, pum, night, night. So the reason Rayful Edmond was able to be untouched and take over was because this guy, Antonio Jones, got rid of all the competition. He got rid of the competition. So imagine this, another serial killer, another mass murderer, getting glorified in the Black community. So you got the drug dealer being glorified and the guy that was his hitman getting glorified. Like I told you before, Black people will always choose Barabbas. Black people will always choose Barabbas. Club Rico said another King Bond, another Boosie. Exactly. Boosie hired a little boy, little Marlo, young man, that idolized Boosie and turned him into a serial killer. He turned this 15-year-old kid into a serial killer. Murdered 9 or more people. Boosie, the one everybody loved, cracking jokes, all that. Boosie. And the reason why Boosie got out of prison is because Marlo didn't tell. I think I read somewhere where Marlo was going to tell because they was going to get Marlo to get Boosie convicted so Marlo would actually get out and live his life, you know, after serving his time. And I heard that some of his family members got killed. And so Marlo didn't do it because he didn't want Boosie to kill the rest of his family. But Marlo got a tattoo on his chest and it says, Boosie, who you want me to hit next? This is why folks don't want me to talk. Vintage said Rafe was a rat. We probably, I wouldn't doubt it. Most of your big drug kingpins, they tell. So just for the record, your big time drug dealers, they always snitch. Always. You can't make it that big without telling on somebody, giving the police something. You can't do it. So they all tell. But Boosie gets celebrated, having a kid that idolized him, turned him into a serial killer. King Von, a serial killer, idolized. This is a reflection on the culture. This is a reflection on the culture. But Black folks get mad at me. Not because I'm lying, because I'm telling the truth.
I've been knowing Ray since he was a little young kid. Right? They're much younger than me. So me and his older brother, Melbo, we like this. We still like that today. His uncle was an older guy that when I used to be around Orleans Place in the 70s. He was one of those kind of guys you just couldn't mess with. I mean, he was a laid-back guy, but if you get him wrong, you're going to see something that you never wanted to see. And I done seen him in action a lot with his hands. Couldn't do nothing with him, you know? So my relationship with the uncle, it made my relationship with the other half of the family even stronger because he was one of them guys that protected us when we was kids, you know? And a lot of other guys, you know, I can't remember a lot of them, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm getting old too.
Protected y'all from who? I keep hearing this word protection. Protection from who? I haven't heard KKK. I haven't heard white nationalists. I haven't heard police. I haven't heard government. Protection from who? All I keep hearing is protection, protection, protection. From who?
The relationship with Ray, it was like when we started together, all of us, we did our thing. But I had got into a situation uptown, one of my partners, we was up on 9th Street. He caught a case. And when he went in, I went to Ray and say, look, I don't have nobody to watch my back like I really want to. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come home and dig in. If it's all right with you, this is what I want to do. And when I told him that, he said, man, shit, whatever you want to do is all right with me, Slam. I told him, I said, let me run the show. Let me do what I want to do. And I'll show you better than I can tell you. So during the course of that time, it was like a lot of guys running off with money, doing a whole lot of things that they shouldn't do. When I came around, I made sure all that stopped. But you know, they always say, what's the difference between a boxer and a knife pusher? Knife pusher, make sure you get the point. So that's what I did. I made sure they got the point.
You heard what he said. He said, he thought he said something slick too. He said, what's the difference between a boxer and a knife pusher? He said, a knife pusher gets to the point. And so again, what he was doing was knocking people off. He just told you what he was doing was knocking people off. That's how you get folks to start running off and stealing and doing all that stuff, selling dope and setting up shop over here. You start taking them out. You see, nobody wants to talk about how violent and deadly this drug epidemic was. And this guy, Antonio, and this production was done by Howard University and Historically Black College. They did a whole special on glorifying a guy that's telling you he was a murderer.
Basically, I used to watch a lot of military stuff, but you know, my brother went to the service, man, in the 60s. And by him being a part of that military scene, he always taught me how to hand-to-hand combat. He told me to pay attention to the small details. And that's what I did. I made sure that everything that I seen or done, I try to make him proud of me every time I made a move, you know? Yeah, this house in particular, yeah, I used to hide in this house on the inside. It was abandoned then.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I used to get the dude, give me the keys. I would give him a certain amount of money a week. He's working on it in the daytime. He just tell me don't be in there in the daytime. So I always come in at night. I used to use it for one of my surveillance spots. I had spots all over the whole neighborhood. They never know where I was at. So that's what was good about me. I stayed out of the way.
I told you that the community has to be involved for this to take place. And again, you heard what he said. He said that his brother was in the military and his brother taught him when he learned in the military, take it to the streets. So imagine them condemning the white man, but also using his tactics to destroy his own people. On one hand, they condemn the white man, but on the other hand, they sitting there taking what the white man is doing, using it for death and destruction. They was over in the Vietnam War fighting against communism. He was over in these streets of the USA fighting against his own people.
was always behind the scenes, not, you know, in the front of the scene. It was this block right here it was just so crowded, man. It was so many people around this block here, man, it didn't make sense. It's like you really couldn't drive through here because it was just cars double parked, people getting out, you know, the young girls hollering at some of the guys that work around here. Times was it just was money, man. Everybody was getting money. Yeah, you know, back then, hair salons was making money. Everybody was making money because when they get the money, you know, they looking out for the girls, looking out for the women, making sure they look nice. But the traffic around here, one day we came outside and it was so many people out here. And I looked at my partner back then at the time, and the first thing I told him, I said, man, we have arrived. And we would run out of the stuff so much, we had to have constantly get our people to bring more stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because we couldn't supply everybody like that. We just had to keep coming, keep hitting, keep getting money.
Does he sound remorseful? Does he sound sad? Does this man sound remorseful? And keep in mind again, this was created by in Dallas. This was created by Howard University, glorifying a murderer and drug dealer. Acadia said he's very proud. Like, I have not heard 1 ounce of remorse in this whole thing. Not 1 ounce.
The verdict today in the Edmond drug ring trial in Washington, 24-year-old Rayful Edmond convicted of running a $2 million a week cocaine crime outfit in the nation's capital. The one-time schoolyard basketball star faces a mandatory life sentence now. 10 co-defendants, including friends and relatives, were found guilty on related charges. Security surrounding the trial was unusually tight. Names of the jurors were kept secret even from the judge and lawyers to guard against possible reprisals.
But I've always been strong when it comes to anything. If I can't control it, if the judge give you 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, you got to do that time. That's the reality of it. I had life without parole twice. They took it from me, took me back to court, gave it to me all over again. That's me, Rayful, and Tony Lewis. They gave us life all over again. Everybody else got 27, 25, 24, whatever have you, but they kept me with the life and kept us 3 with the life. So my inner strength was always my mother. I always thought about, you know, my mother would never want me to break weak. My mother would never want me, you know, I just didn't never want to have my mother look at me in the wrong direction. You know what I'm saying? That's always been my strength, my mother.
So imagine this guy telling you that his strength is his mother, and he out here selling dope and killing people. Imagine this guy, and I told you all, you have to get consent from the community to do this. This can only take place if the folks around you agree to this. He said, I did this for my mother. I didn't want to look bad in front of my mother. The killing didn't make me look bad. Selling dope didn't make me look bad. What made me look bad was looking weak in court. So you know that means his mother knew he was selling drugs and she was benefiting from it. For him to talk about not wanting to look bad in front of his mother after all he did, then clearly she was with what he was doing. And again, has anybody seen any remorse?
Even when she passed, I have not shed 1 tear today. When I was in the streets doing what I was doing, I didn't have a problem with any of it. See, I'm one of them guys, I ain't never been scared to die. That's how I grew up. That's how I was. That was my thought process, you know? So basically, man, now, you know, I'm older. You know, I got to think of my grandkids, my great-grandkids, and, you know, my children, you know, and my wife, or, you know, I just got to keep my mind right. You know what I'm saying? So I don't condone any of that negativity. I stay away from it. I keep it away from me. And I'm just living, man. I'm just happy to be here.
Well, from a cautionary tale, it's like, you know, the youth today, you have to kind of meet them where they are. They don't really want to hear prison stories. And I've learned that recently. They want to know what's going on. They want resources. They want to know how they can get some money. They want to take shortcuts, and you have to know how to check them. You have to know how to let them know that, look, this is not an easy process. There's no shortcut to everything. You have to be consistent in their lives. Being cautionary, you need to let them know, look, there's going to be consequences to what you do.
America has done a number on black people. You know, you grow up putting your hand on your chest and saying, you know, your Pledge of Allegiance, and you think, you know, the government is, you know, the top and a place of honor and things like that. And it is supposed to be, right? But you start to learn that, you know, through redlining and things, that black people just put up against so many walls, right? And so pushed into environments where they had to survive, where stress levels are high. Like, what is it like, you know, not being able to eat and not knowing where money's going to come from? That just puts a stress on people, where people have to go and do things that they probably wouldn't do, right? When you get pushed against the wall, you got to find a way to shine. So that's why it's glorification on the hood. People want to be from the hood. They want to act like they poor and don't have money and stuff like that. But that came from the pressures. Like, everybody wants to be proud of something, right? So as the people that's come from these neighborhoods, they want to be proud of something. They want to stand out, right? And so that's why you might start selling drugs. Like, I want to live like the rich and famous. I want to see that. I want to touch that, right? I want to be proud of something. You know what I mean? And so I think my biggest takeaway is that, you know, we're survivors, but yeah, the country's done a number on us, from dumping drugs in certain places, being involved in certain things, and being, you know, racist against us has put us in some predicaments. We survived, you know what I mean? We've lost a lot of people, but that's the biggest thing I've seen. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to get married. I wanted to have kids so I could provide guidance and, like, put them out into the world. And hopefully, you know what I mean? I guess we got to start with ourselves, man, because nobody else gonna help us. That's what I've learned.
Now, imagine after all the death, destruction, and carnage that has ensued, somehow, some way, he managed to blame white people. All these folks been murdered, all these drugs been sold, and somehow, some way, it's white people's fault. Remember what I said, that the devil is the accuser of his brother. Not one time have you heard in this documentary any type of, we were wrong, we shouldn't have did it, Rayful Edmond was wrong, I was wrong, what we did was horrible, we destroyed a generation. Like, none of that. When it comes to the time for the sobering moment, and when it comes time to get to the crux of what's going on and what's the problem, he blamed white people. He blamed white people. And then he said, so because black folks were done wrong, the natural reaction is to want to shine. So now you basically, again, you justify all of the death, destruction, and damnation because of how black folks were treated in America. So I ask my question again: if the treatment or so-called history of black people is the result of what we see today, then how can we truly trust what we're even looking at in the past? If a bad tree cannot bear good fruit, then how could the righteous tree of fighting for equality in America yield a bad fruit? Somewhere along the way, somebody had to tell a lie and believe a lie. We just saw these men brag about an era that was filled with death, destruction, damnation, and decadence. We just saw this. And at the summation of it, this guy says it's white people's fault. Behind the Mask, a peek into blackness. I'm going to do part 2 of this on Saturday. because I want to talk about the case that I covered on Monday, but I want to go over the woman's interrogation, the final part of it, and I want to highlight how all of these folks have the same answer to the problem: racism. Carl Olive said the treatment was so bad for black people that he decided to sell drugs and kill the black people. You can't make it like literally what Carl Olive just said. The treatment of black people was so bad in America that they in turn killed other black people and sold drugs. Like it's insane. Cruise Missile, thank you so much for the super stick. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Always supporting. Vintage Goods Willie, I believe the mark will be in the forehead as ideas and in the hand in the form of allegiance to the beast, possibly, because the Bible says that it will be the mark, the name, or the number. So it'll be three different things, possibly maybe one of each or a combination of one of the two or the three. I don't know, but it will be three things: a mark, a name, and a number. But thank you, Vintage Goods Willie. Martin Towns, Woke Dead Prayers rap group, we don't own no boats as a lyric in the song. Exactly, Martin Towns. Thank you for the super sticker. Exactly. The justification of because you don't bring the drugs in, you should be allowed to sell it. It's just insane to me. Joshua Cooper, I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and Bessemer is 35 minutes down the freeway. The amount of violence in both of these cities is insane and demonic. I agree, Joshua. Birmingham was always on First 48, always. Thank you again. Vintage Good Willie, Rayful was a rat. He probably was. All them drug kingpins snitch, all of them. Idris Singleton, super sticker, thank you so much, sir. EJ Dorr, super sticker, thank you so much, sir. Just a Girl, thank you for all the lies, Blanche. God bless you. Thank you so much, Just a Girl. Will Wait, just sending love to Blanche and our wonderful online family. Thank you, Will Wait. MKOK, thank you so much for the super sticker. Really appreciate it. And to quote the Samuel Jackson in a time to, yeah, he deserved it too. Oh, in the movie, yeah. Oh, in the movie, Samuel Jackson, yeah. And I hope they burn in hell. Yeah, I remember that. Thank you, Vintage Goods, Willie. Carl Olive, keep up the good work. I like your work. Appreciate it, Carl Olive. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. Listen, you all, I want y'all to give a round of applause for our lovely moderators, Angel Wings, thank you so much, and the Goddess Navi. And give a shout out to yourselves for keeping the chat so lit. I feel like y'all make the live just go so much better because y'all be having so much great commentary. But anyway, listen, I love y'all. Thank you on IG. Thank you, Angela. Marcus, thank y'all so much for tuning in. Listen, I love y'all, and I'll see you all again on Saturday. Well, I have a question for you all. One more before I go. How many of y'all caught the Judge Joe Brown live? And if y'all caught it, what did y'all think about it? If y'all caught that Judge Joe Brown live, what did y'all think about that live? I want to get y'all feedback because Chad asked me today what I thought about it. But I want to get y'all feedback. Maria said, I love Joe Brown. Club Rico said, insightful, great history. Vic said, I thought it was obligatory. Kenya said, eh. Patrice said it was wild. Pamela said, I fell asleep. Guys, I had to make time for the whole thing. Honestly, I wouldn't even, it's a long, it's over 3.5 hours, man. I don't know. Acadia said, yikes. Reed Church said, a little like a TV show, but better. Okay. Excellent live. As I said, lots of talking. I got to watch this. All the first 20 was just going on. 4 hours is crazy. Yeah. Dina King said, dang, you getting old. Listen, I thought it was entertainment. He's a character for sure. He's cool, but he's a bit of the Kool-Aid. Oh, yeah. I'm about to put it on now to go to sleep. He's a talker. He's all yeah, so, yeah. I thought it was just entertainment. I thought it was entertainment. What I thought about it was just that it was entertainment. I think that he has a lot of nostalgia about the past, and I think he doesn't realize that who was influencing him and his generation were communists. I don't think he knows. I think that he saw communism as a good thing. In fact, he mentioned that communism is necessary to get a country to a point, and then you're supposed to abandon it. But he said communism was necessary. So that lets me know that he doesn't really see the dangers of it. Still friends with Angela Davis, still believes in a lot of what these Black Panthers did. So a lot of the stuff he was talking about was really nostalgia based and not really an accurate historical context about what was going on. The things he was saying may have been true, but from a context perspective, they weren't, because make no mistake about it, the communists were behind the Black liberation movement. This is a fact. It's not even a question who was behind it. And so I think that because you were friends with these people and you actually, were with these folks during this time, you kind of have a favorable light of them. When in actuality, I believe that most of the people that were involved in the Black empowerment movement or Black struggle movement were none the wiser as to who was behind it. I only think the major players actually knew who was actually behind and pulling the strings. So Judge Joe Brown probably wouldn't have known, but Angela Davis knew because she was groomed from a child. Her parents, like she was groomed, so she knew. Certain people knew. People like Langston Hughes, they knew. MLK knew. Elijah Muhammad knew. So, people knew. But I would say the heavy hitters knew. Marcus Garvey knew. The heavy hitters knew. The Black Panthers knew. The freedom fighters knew. But as far as probably the lower level people, they didn't really know. They were just following orders. So I don't really fault Judge Joe Brown for his stance and his take. I don't fault most of these people because I know they were just following orders. They were fed something. They believed this was a way to achieve something. So I can't really be mad because I fell for the propaganda as well. So I really can't be upset with them. But now, yes, Maria, Malcolm X. But now you should know better. But I think now it's just so hard because now for him to pivot towards the truth would mean that he would lose all of his friends and some of his credibility, probably a lot of it. But the propaganda, Leatherface said it might have been worse back then. It probably was because it was so. To me, the propaganda back then was more action-based. So you actually were physically engaged in the propaganda. Whereas now you get it through movies and books and shows and word of mouth. But back then you were actively engaged in the propaganda. So you got a propagandized message and you actually went out there and gave it legs. So yeah, I would say it was worse back then. And again, a lot of these folks had good intentions, but as Rico said, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Maria said there was no internet. Exactly. We have an advantage. So I don't hold these folks to the same standard as I do with folks today. We have Google today. We have the internet. We have people that are speaking, telling the truth. So now there's no excuse. Back then there was an excuse, but now there's no excuse. No excuse now. Anyway, I love y'all. I thank y'all, and I will see you all on Saturday. Thank y'all so much. Love y'all.